Investing, I think it started with a lot of mistakes, to be very honest. I think I keep saying this, I'm a product of the lot of mistakes that I made. In this 120 months, I wanted to have savings of 360 months, which is 30 years from 50. Initial investment decisions were largely are centered around saving taxes. Very late I realized it is the other way around, where I have to prioritize life goals and let tax savings be the byproduct. The numbers are extremely daunting. When I put it in the Excel sheet, I said ki hoga hi nahi. There is no fun in paying tax when you have an option of a product like an NPS.
Hello and welcome to Pension Pe Charcha, brought to you by Thefynprint and Protean. In this series, we delve into the hidden benefits, intricacies, and hacks of NPS, and we see it through the lens of multiple people: the movers and shakers, the advisors, and the people who actually invest in NPS for their retirement or for other goals. In today's episode, we have with us Aditya Kothari, who is a senior marketing professional at one of India's largest retail chains. Aditya has used NPS for many years and plans to continue doing so. He's close to his retirement. But let's find out more about his journey and how he's been able to leverage NPS. Welcome, Aditya.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thanks for this lovely introduction and thanks for this great opportunity. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Aditya. So let me go a little bit first into your career so far. If you can tell us how you went through it and the decisions that you made in terms of savings and investments at crucial points.
Oh, so I'll take a little longer to kind of mention this. So in my career, I think I spent about 25 odd years working. I'm an MBA. Spent largely most of my time in retail industry, and
you are 48 now.
I'm 48 now, and I've spent my larger time in retail. Have had good stints in life insurance companies and telecom. Investing, I think it started with a lot of mistakes, to be very honest. I think I keep saying this, I'm a product of the lot of mistakes that I made. And
so when did you start investing? At what age did you begin?
My first product, in most cases, like many other cases, was into a traditional insurance plan.
Right.
Purely from the point of view of tax saving. And I think there was this phases which I went through, like many others, is from graduating from tax saving instruments. So I think 2002 is when I started working, and
right.
Around the same time is when I started investing. Like I said, the first product was a traditional life insurance policy.
Right.
Going to various other smaller things. Luckily, by virtue of my little stint in life insurance company, I was introduced to ULIPs. I was introduced to term insurance. Age was on my side. I took a chance learning ULIPs and invested in ULIPs for my colleague to achieve his targets. So honestly, that's how ULIP happened to me. And then we went on, I progressed ahead, and ELSS happened again, which is a beautiful tax instrument product.
ELSS funds.
ELSS funds in mutual funds. Going to other products. Then I got into home loans, and so my initial investment decisions were largely are centered around saving taxes and thereby achieve my long-term life goals. Very late I realized it is the other way around, where I have to prioritize life goals and let tax savings be the byproduct. I think NPS in particular, I started somewhere in 2013 as a so I spent a lot of time, personal finance is a passion project, and I keep learning around this subject. I do a lot of work around this project. So NPS I started in 2013, like I said, by investing just 50,000 rupees to check. I opened my first account in NPS app in Protean to save this 50,000, the tax advantage or industry C.
Incredibly early, I think more earlier than most people would have started their NPS.
Yeah, so like I said, because anything to save tax, that was the primary objective. And little did I know that my company that point in time had an option of corporate NPS. Unfortunately, there was not enough awareness around the setup. So for 2 years in the same company, I was only investing at an individual level, at a voluntary level,
right.
And not at a corporate, not subscribed to corporate plan. And only in 2015 or 16 is when I formally enrolled myself. So I migrated my individual PRAN account to a corporate PRAN account. So I learned all these processes going through. So which is why I said I'm a product of of my own experiments. So 2016 is when I subscribed to corporate NPS. Of course, those days new regime was not there, so it was only 10% of basic plus my voluntary contribution. And I think very early I realized what it can do to my portfolio, and I'm a firm believer of goal-based financial planning.
So let me step back.
Yeah.
You had this moment of time in your life, right? When you went from somewhat haphazard tactical decisions
Yes.
to save tax to this is my goal and this is how I'm going to get there.
Yes.
Tell me more about that moment.
So, like I said, I've been following a lot of content around personal finance. I've done formal courses on personal finance, and that is when this goal-based thing stuck to me really, really. I would say most times I would be biased towards this concept because I cannot just take away my attention out of this because like I said, I've done a lot of random stuff. So around 2019 is when I was little keen to chase this concept of FIRE, which became the buzzword later.
Financial independence, retire
Financial independence, retire early. But more than retire early, I was chasing financial independence because that is where I gave the larger prominence. The whole concept was, and I just fell in love with the concept because it doesn't mean that I would want to retire. I just wanted to create a choice for myself at a certain point in time where you're not under any obligation to work. You would want to choose to work, and I believe when you in that phase where you choose to work, your productivity automatically increases. So I started this journey of FIRE around 2019, where I put up a plan for myself from 40 to 50, which is 10 years, which translates to 120 months. And in this 120 months, I wanted to have savings of 360 months, which is 30 years from 50. While it is advisable to plan till 90, but I said, "Ki, for the math sake, let me have this ratio of 120 is to 360, which is 1 is to 3. And that's when I started this journey. The numbers are extremely daunting. When I put it in the Excel sheet, I said, "Ki hoga hi nahi."
Yeah.
And I said, "Ki no harm in trying because this is my working. Nobody has given me this target. Let me attempt this journey." And that's when I started aligning goals to, because then parallelly I learned this bucket strategy, and there are various such theories.
Sure. So Aditya, I'll just take a step back just to recap.
Yes.
So in 2019, you made essentially a 10-year plan
Yes.
that you would save so much money in 10 years.
Yes.
And of course, that money would earn returns.
Yes.
That you would have 30 years worth of expenses saved up
Yes.
after those 10 years. So when
Yes.
29 hits,
Yes.
you will have that much.
Yes.
And how's the plan going?
So, like I said, first it was scary. Numbers were very, very difficult to achieve. Till such time, there came a phase where money started making money. Of course, I had a little advantage of when I started this journey in Jan 2019. I had a little advantage of about 30 odd lakhs, which I managed to accumulate by selling my second property. That is one of the many financial mistakes I would have made. So that gave me a heads up of 60 months. If I were to tell you in the number of months. So then I had to plan for 300 months.
So Aditya, now it's probably easier to talk about numbers. So you introduced one number, which is 30 lakhs.
Yeah.
So what was your target? What is your target corpus for 2029?
So I was basically, I graduated on this target. My initial target, because it is a derivative of a monthly expenses. When I started this journey, Neil, my monthly expenses were roughly in the range of 50 to 60,000 a month, which obviously with lifestyle inflation
Goes up.
It goes up. Hence the eventual number went up. Luckily, because the portfolio returns were the difference between the portfolio returns and the prevailing inflation was quite huge, I could cover up for the deficit in my investments. So to answer a question, the number that I feel in my case would work is anywhere close to 3 crores is a safe number for my journey.
Now, let's talk about how you are getting to this number.
Yes.
You have a portfolio that's split between different vehicles. So you have mutual funds, you have EPF, Employees Provident Fund, and of course you have NPS.
Yes.
What is the split between the three of them?
Mutual funds, so it is 25% NPS, 25% Provident Fund, roughly 50% of mutual funds. When I say 50% of mutual fund, I'm excluding the funds earmarked for my son's education.
Sure.
This is largely...
Sure, we'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But only on the retirement you have...
Now, what happens is I have intentionally been aggressive in NPS over APF, and I'm sure you would agree to this fact that in most cases, EPF is never equal to NPS, because the way the products are structured, which is where I chose to voluntarily go aggressive and contribute in NPS on my own over and above the taxable limit, because then I was chasing a goal and not just tax benefits, and hence I could create this allocation for myself.
Right. So you went to 75% equity
75%.
in NPS.
So I think, like you said, I've seen this transition in NPS. There was a point in time where it never allowed you to make any decisions to a stage where now it is allowing you 100% equity.
Yes.
And in between, I could choose fund managers for different asset classes. This is where I started experimenting with the product, and luckily, app like a Protein, it helped me to they ensure that you're always updated, because even in the statement, the monthly statement that you get, there is a panel at the bottom of the statement which tells you what is new, or some education kind of a thing. From there I learned this concept of tagging different fund managers for different asset classes, and that's when I did it on myself and then educated others in the team.
So now you're different PFMs for different.
Yes, so different portfolio managers for different asset classes.
So any portfolio, Aditya, needs a fixed income component, a low risk component, and a equity / high risk
100%.
component.
Yes.
So within your split of mutual funds, EPF and NPS, I'm assuming the EPF does the
cushioning part.
the low risk debt part.
Yes.
Mutual funds, I'm assuming, is more equity. What's the split there?
So mutual fund is more equity, yes, but again, there are certain goals that I've tagged for immediate short term kind of a thing, where I have went for not a conservative hybrid, but a hybrid portfolio where the equity savings category kind of a thing, where the proportion of pure equity is way too less, and hence I have again, so one of the learnings in this investment journey was one can hope for returns and one can only manage risks. So I'm trying to manage risks by diversifying into a pure equity product for a long-term goal vis-a-vis a hybrid kind of product to manage my near-term goals.
Right. Okay. So mutual funds is somewhat split, but more equity than that. And NPS, of course, as we discussed, is 75% equity.
Equity, yes.
And so far, you are on track to achieve.
Yeah. So in fact, on the track piece, Unil, I just want to share. So when I made this Excel sheet for myself at the age of 40, I realized if my overall portfolio achieves 11% year on year, I'll be through. The beauty of this thing was it drew me to the fact that why am I chasing returns? There is no need to chase returns. Let me just stay put on my allocation, because if 11% can do this magic, and currently my overall portfolio returns is upwards of 13%, then I said, then you're safe.
Correct.
Yeah. Then why? And you are, in my view, I was in a combination of the best yielding fixed income and equity products, where your provident fund is giving you 8.25 plus, which is tax free, which is roughly translates to 11% or 10% pre-tax returns. So I think this combination is a decent combination, and it also brought up sense that I rather stay simplified and don't over diversify, because eventually
I agree.
it only adds complexity to your portfolio.
Yeah. And cost.
And cost, of course.
Now, just to clarify one thing, that you had some starting capital of 30 lakhs.
Yes.
But apart from that, you're also adding to it every month with your savings. So
Yes.
it's not that only the 30 is becoming 3 CR, rather it's also your monthly savings.
I'm extremely aggressive in my saving, like I said, because financial independence, and not that it is coming at a cost of the way we live. I think my first biggest achievement in this journey was I chose to become debt free at 40. So when I stopped my leakage, my EMI became my SIP, and then there was a phase so all the incremental cost towards managing lifestyle came from the fact that I was saving on EMIs. So hence it never disturbed my investment journey. So because this was my decision, and it also took me a while to get everybody in this sync at a family level, because my son will have a different need, my wife will have a different need. It took some discussions to align all of this,
Okay, so if I may ask, how much do you roughly save every month?
So in percentage terms, I think I would be saving anywhere close to 60-65%. So there are some annual component that you get at a variable bonus or variable pay. Putting that number together, I think it is anywhere around 60-65% of my.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I barely manage half of that. So, okay.
So sorry. So the 60-65%, Neil, also it includes my contribution to, say, Provident Fund and NPS, which is going
By
as
default.
by default. So hence I don't have to really struggle much, because then the balance is what I need to take care of through my SIPs. So people normally get this notion wherein the moment you say 65%, they feel 65% of the take home, or it is not that. At a portfolio level, I think 65% is not a bad number.
So of just take home, what percentage would it be?
Take home anywhere around 50% odd.
Which is still incredibly
Yeah,
low.
yeah.
I think not living on rent is a big advantage.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't deny that fact.
Okay, so then let's turn for a minute to your house. Your experience with buying the house, then paying off the loan.
Yeah.
Can you give us that journey?
I think we bought our first house somewhere in 2007, 6, 7, and that's when I learned this thing of tax saving on home loan interest and principal and stuff like that. It suddenly, the EMI started hitting me really bad, because I didn't foresee this this journey of 20 years. I said 20 years it ho jayega, but then careers, the transition that you go through in career has its own challenges, and which is where I said I need to stop this leakage. And around the same time, my wife decided to take a break in her career, so that kind of added to the overall.
So you took the loan in 2007.
2007, yes.
Right.
Yeah, 2007.
And it was a 20-year loan, so technically it should have ended next year, 2027.
Yes. But the good part is, one of the bank managers or employees with whom I took this loan, he said, "Ki, sir, the average rate of people clearing this loan is 7 years."
Oh.
So I kind of laughed. I said, "Ki, possibly nahi, at that stage of life and with early careers." And I was also
Possibly nahi.
yeah, and we were also conditioned as Indians, or as that buy home first, right? Because we got married in 2006, and the first thing that everybody pushed me is to buy a house.
Correct.
I said, "Okay, we'll get there," and that's so. I said 7 years is not possible. But I said, if this is the average, which means a sizable population is able to close the loan. I said, even if it is not 7, can it be 10? And then I started learning the math around this loan, and I got hold of an Excel format of amortization schedule, and that did the magic for me, because I started playing with numbers.
Right. That if you prepay so much.
Yeah, exactly. Not many banks encouraged you to prepay on a monthly basis. They had certain clauses initially, once in a quarter, 20% of the loan and stuff like that. So I switched my loans also in between to save on that interest. So that was another learning that I had. And then when I learned SIPs and mutual funds, what I did was, as one of my goal, I started, instead of prepaying my loan, I started an SIP only to prepay my loan at the end of, say, 4 years or 5 years. I said, let me see how it goes. Okay. Because what was happening around this time was, every time I was increasing my EMI, I realized I was falling short on my contingency money. I wanted some liquidity, because a lot of things cannot be planned.
Correct.
And see, money is finite. Either you pay through EMI. So I realized there is no liquidity for me, which is why I said, let me park into a mutual fund. Let's see how it goes. If no eventuality happens, I will eventually prepay the loan. God was kind. Nothing happened, and my portfolio those days was, I think, would have earned roughly around 14-15% plus. I don't remember the numbers. I'm just putting a number, but in that same range. And I took the money out, and I happily started prepaying.
And what was the interest on the home loan?
So I think around 2007, or my initial interest rates were 12-13%, in that range. By the time it kind of progressed, it came to in that 11, 10, 10.5 kind of range. I was kind of a daredevil, so I entered into second property, because, like I said, I was more into tax saving. Those days there was interest benefits on second home.
Correct.
I said, why not take this advantage? So I took an advantage of, I got into another house. Soon I realized, it didn't make any sense, and I was only creating leakage for myself. And that is when at 40 I sold my second house to be debt free, because I was carrying two loans.
Got
The loan on the primary house as well as the loan on the secondary house, which didn't make any, because it was taking too much away from me.
So roughly in 2019, you closed off
Yes.
both the loans
Yes.
at age 40.
At age 40, yes.
Sounds a lot like my mother. She would have done the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural thing that comes with every parent. So, is it ki I know what I'm doing. Now, to many, obviously, COVID was not a great scenario to happen, but COVID did a lot good to me, if I can be honest, because 2019 is when I practically went all in, with the 30 lakhs of capital and a very aggressive SIPs and all that, and the story changed.
But how did you react when the market crashed in March of 20?
So luckily, my learnings were so strong because I knew, what long-term thing can do. Because I didn't budge. In fact, around that time, if you remember, government gave this option of withdrawing 3 months basic to take care of your needs. I actually took that option and I invested in mutual funds and NPS both.
From the PF?
From the PF money. So I withdrew, I think if I remember the amount, I withdrew roughly about 3 lakhs. And I don't remember the proportion, but I
Put some in mutual fund, some in NPS.
So, and in both, I just topped up my investments, because the whole idea was to bring the purchase cost down.
Sure.
So, and every time till date, Neil, as a practice, what I try and do, and I try to keep things very simplified. And in most financial advisors and in all the content that I keep following, all the experts in this, and including one of your channel that I follow very strongly, is people claim that 12% is what you should expect in a mutual fund, right? 12% in a year roughly translates to 1% a month. Yeah.
Correct.
Every time a market crashes 1% a day, which happens very often now, I top up my investments if I have money. Because 1% drop in a single day is a big to me. Now I don't do back testing and all that. I'm not great at doing research, but this rule has helped me immensely, because at every stage I'm bringing my cost of purchase down. And hence I think my portfolio returns, in my view, is a very healthy double-digit number than many others, because then I'm not only resorting to SIP. And same thing I do for mutual funds, NPS. So in fact, just before budget, I withdrew some part of PF again, because now the PF withdrawal rules are so relaxed. I said, then, and I've reached a certain level where my interest income from PF is fairly strong. So I thought, let me withdraw some part, an amount which is equivalent to the interest that I'm likely to earn in this March, in this month end.
On PF?
On PF. And I went all in NPS just before the budget. I was expecting some corrections.
Correct.
And like I said, it is a long-term journey. So it's okay. Anyways, I'll cover it up.
Fantastic.
Because the whole idea was to bring NPS to the levels of PF, which I could successfully bring in.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's turn a little bit to your retirement phase when it begins.
Yeah.
So, as per your plan, 2029 is when you should be free financially. You may not retire at that point.
35 months from now, if I can be, if I can give you a number.
3 years, roughly. So, you, as we discussed earlier, are not thinking of full retirement. You just have the optionality at that point. You may do a side gig, or you may do multiple things. You don't know what you would end up doing, and that provides psychological comfort as well, because you're not only depending on savings, right?
Yes.
So therefore, so when you have a multiple which is 30 times your expenses, you have the comfort that you have another income coming in for as long as you want it to come.
Yes.
At that point, do you think you would use the NPS for some part of your monthly expense? Would you start an SWP, or what's the?
So interesting question, honestly, Neil, because again, so my mom has been a government employee. She was headmistress of a municipality school when she retired, and I see her so happy today, purely for the fact that there is something called as pension which she earns, which is inflation adjusted. There was a phase where her pension income was so healthy that it was equivalent to, to maybe 30-40% of what I earn, in a full-time job today. And I'm very happy that, she is not dependent on us, so me and my brother. What happens is, when you're employed, especially when you're salaried, you get used to a certain cash flow, and I realized while I'm busy accumulating funds like many others to accumulating corpus, you need a plan that will help you cash flows for a much longer period without applying too much of mind. Because mind play a lot of monkey tricks, and I wanted to do I wanted to have some pipeline where I am not required to be engaged to create a monthly cash flow, and that's where I see NPS sitting beautifully there. And by virtue of the developments that have happened all this while, in fact, when people kept on cribbing that there is a 40% lock-in and 60% is tax-free and all of that, I said that is actually a virtue than than a bane. I don't see why should it, and it is a healthy lock-in. I mean, in the overall scheme of things, like there was a period where NPS was a very small contribution to my portfolio. I intentionally chose to increase it purely for the fact that I want a healthy proportion of cash flow when I retire or when I choose to retire. Purely because today, whatever little that I know of managing money, I may or may not have that skill and will both at that stage. And with NPS again, because it's this option of SLW, which is systematic lump sum withdrawal, which is an equivalent of SWP in mutual funds. My hope, as my plan right now is not to take any lump sum withdrawal at 60. I rather take a combination of SLW and NVT. Both put together should give me my required number. So my initial working since when we spoke before this was, I was at some stage I was trying to see, can I retire at 45? I was trying to put some math around. What if I were to retire at 45? What is the number that I need to have? One specific number, if I can quote now, because we're talking NPS, I realized if I can have 25 lakhs at the age of 45 in NPS, and if I don't invest anything beyond that because I may cease to work, and if that NPS continues to grow at 10% till age 60, Neil, this portfolio of 25 lakh grows to a crore.
Wow.
Yeah, compounding. So it was pure compounding, magic of compounding, Neil, as we know the theories of fossil finance. And today, by virtue of me being aggressive in NPS with 75% in equity, my current portfolio returns and in NPS stands at 12%. I'm sure you know what XIRR. So you know what the magic of this 2% difference over this long period. And when I put some math around NVTs also, so while I understand the NVT rates in future is likely to go down, but if I apply today's annuity rate of 6%, it gives me an assured passive income of 6 lakhs a year, which translates to roughly 50,000 a month, which is roughly about 50 odd % of what I spend today. Now, obviously,
Expenses will go up.
expenses might go up, but at the same time the returns will go up, because I personally believe the returns has a direct correlation to the inflation. So the moment the overall inflation might go up, which is also a sign that the equities might also do well.
Sure.
And hence I feel
Sure.
Would you use MSF to take your equity beyond 75%?
So MSF is a recent development, and I think I'm quite excited to know about MSF. Honestly, I'm learning as we speak. I have not really delved into it. In my current scheme of things, I'm quite aggressive in mutual funds as well. So I might go for it. It's just that I'm at a stage of life where I would want to go a little conservative than remain aggressive. But to all the team members in my team who are fairly young, I educate them to opt for NPS. Second, I tell them, this is such a beautiful product. I think it is also in a phase where it needs to get aligned with corporates as well as PFRD or whatever NPS. But I think we are largely get there. I think it is a great thing to happen now.
Now you have a son, and
Yes.
he is in 11th standard
Yes.
currently.
Yes.
You've kept aside a sum of 50 lakhs for his education,
Yes.
which you're not sure if he will necessarily use or if he'll use it overseas or in India.
Yes.
Had you systematically planned for this? Like, how did you get to the corpus?
I realize financial planning largely is planning of life goals, and some of the life goals are very obvious life events that are going to happen, So when we actually conceived my son, his name is Parth, I knew that this is coming, So I had a heads up of 1 odd year to for me to plan, and because I had a little rough patch in my career at some stage around that time, I said, "Okay, let me be at least ahead of 3 years ahead of his basic school fees." So I knew that what is the school fees to prevail, that prevails in my area. I said, okay, let me just, and that's when I actually started systematically, because I knew. So the beauty of child education planning is you actually know the end dates. You know when your child is going to be in 10th, in graduation, in PG, roughly,
Correct.
Unlike a retirement plan where you don't know how long you will live. So I think of barring retirement planning, every other planning, you can put a timeline.
Correct.
And that is where it allows you to plan your risks and the product that you can choose to invest in. And I think then it became very easy for me. And of course, gradually, so there was a stage, when he was born, roughly 2.5, 3 years, he was not in schooling. That gave me heads up for me to plan for his school fees and graduation later. And by virtue of again compounding, I think so his portfolio right now is compounding it at an average rate of about 16 odd %, which in my view is a comfortable number. So when I mentioned 50 lakhs, my principal amount is not 50 lakhs. It is much lower than 50 lakhs. Today market value maybe has been. So by the time he actually gets into graduation, I'm hoping it will be a decent enough base for him to take care of his post graduation. Otherwise, we'll resort to education.
Yeah.
And how did you plan for? So I'm assuming maybe a 10-year period you would have planned from that age.
Yes.
Uh,
So I kept on adding. Like I said, every time I was doing top up. Now, beauty of me pursuing a goal-based planning was whenever I had a lump sum over and above SIPs, whenever I had lump sum, I could choose the goal I want to push. So initial days I was pushing his education goal because my retirement goal I was anyways aggressive. I said, let me kind of push this as well. And then today as we speak, I have become very aggressive in planning my retirement than his education, because I've achieved the number that I was anyways chasing.
Correct.
So I'm gone a little slow on that goal.
Correct. But did you do SIPs? Did you also do NPS Vatsalya? What are the...
NPS Vatsalya came much later, honestly, and by the time Vatsalya came, and because it has a lock-in of till age 18, if I remember it right, he was already 15, 14, 15. So it didn't work in my case, but again Vatsalya again is a great product, but I use NPS tier 2 to my advantage over Vatsalya, and so there was a stage in life I was doing PPF also, but again I realized I'm better off doing NPS and VPF, which is Voluntary Provident Fund, over PPF. Because of the tax rule changes, I've stopped VPF also. Then I'm 100% NPS. I realized NPS tier 2 gave me a lot of advantages over PPF. One, I could decide my portfolio mix. I could, there was no upper cap of 1,50,000, and it provided me liquidity.
And you could switch between the funds.
And I could switch between, absolutely. And I could actually switch from tier 2 to tier 1 tax free. So then I said, with so many advantages, let me stay put in tier, because I didn't want to get everything logged. See, like I said, lock-in is beautiful to an extent you can manage it. So when I'm already logged in myself in NPS, there was no other need to get logged in PPF.
Right.
And 15 years is a long time to see your money compound at say 7%, which is equivalent of your inflation.
Absolutely. So you use tier 2 and mutual funds as well.
Yes.
For his education. Okay. So final thoughts. You have lots of young colleagues in your office and elsewhere. What would you say to them? How should they plan for their futures, and where does NPS sit within that structure?
So see, like I said, in most cases, and even I was at that stage, and every young earner, their first agenda is, I don't want to pay tax, and which is not bad. One can graduate from tax planning to life planning, life goals planning, So, and I keep telling most of my colleagues now, is there is no fun in paying tax when you have an option of a product like an NPS. Whatever, I'm not saying that one should not do any other product, but when you have an option of planning your retirement goal early in your life and save taxes by virtue of this, why not avail this? I mean, I don't see a reason or what joy you get in paying taxes and investing in other products than and by not doing NPS. I rather do the other way around. So, and 14% basic in new regime or 10% in old regime is a very nominal number.
Absolutely.
I think, and I keep telling them, and I actually prove them in calculation wise also, that they have to get over with this fact that it will reduce your take home. It will definitely reduce your take home, but please understand, eventually it is for a larger good. So one needs to balance, because you are anyways, I rather reduce some component of my SIP or any other investment product, but let me maximize all the possible options I have in my early career. One, to build a portfolio for future. Second, help me tax planning, because in new regime, any which ways, you have no other avenue to save tax other than NPS. Then make the most of it.
Absolutely. Aditya, thank you so much for taking out the time. It was a pleasure speaking.
Thank you once again, Neil. Thanks for this wonderful opportunity. Lovely to share my experiences and happy to help. And hoping to meet you once again. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks, Aditya. Thank you for watching NPS Ki Pathshala. I hope that you were able to learn a little bit more about personal finance and NPS. And do give us your feedback in the comments, do like and subscribe as well. Thanks very much.